This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 255 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Cody, it was an awards show weekend for the Critics Society we're a member of, Houston Film Critics Society. Neither of us were able to make it to the awards show, but our colleagues had the awards, obviously, over in Houston on Saturday. And a little later this year than normal. I think it was at the beginning of the year before, but this year in February. We of course had a hand in picking the films that were nominated and the films that won, and the individuals that won. You want to go over what was handed out and what you think of those awards?
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's start with. We'll start with the big stuff. Screenplay went to Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin. I don't have the nominees in front of me. I should have done that. So let's look at this.
You fool!
I know. I pulled up the winners and I didn't pull up the nominees. So here we go. The other nominees in that category were Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Women Talking. I thought The Fabelmans might have squeaked that one out, just knowing the membership that we have in this Houston Film Critics Society was very, very big on that movie, and we'll talk more about that movie later. Are you surprised by this one, or you think it's pretty on brand?
I think that's pretty on brand. I mean, I've been wondering myself recently if I think maybe this is less the case right now, but I kind of wondered if we were going to get like a three-way split for the Oscars where it was like Everything Everywhere All at Once for Best Picture, Banshees of Inisherin for Screenplay, and then maybe Spielberg for Director, and have that be a nice split. Since all those three front runners are all in original screenplay, they're in the same category. So, but I don't know. I mean, who knows at this point? But I think this is a fine win. I think I was a little bit lower, and not to say that I didn't like it, but a little bit lower on Banshees than a lot of people. I would have maybe gone with Everything Everywhere All at Once here, but that's fine. Yeah.
Moving on, supporting actress Carrie Condon, The Banshees of Inisherin. She was up against Jessie Buckley from Women Talking, Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Janelle Monáe from Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery. I think probably the Everything Everywhere All at Once vote is split there.
Yep.
Which I assume it probably will be for the Oscars. But I think Carrie Condon's great. And I have no problem with this win at all.
Yeah, it's a fine win. I would have gone with Stephanie Hsu if I would have been the one picking. But I mean, I was, but
Well, you did have your vote.
If I was the only one picking.
Okay. Yeah. Well, moving on, best supporting actor, Ke Kwan from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Again, up against Brendan Gleeson from The Banshees of Inisherin, Barry Keoghan from The Banshees of Inisherin, Mark Rylance from Bones and All, and Ben Whishaw from Women Talking. Again, I probably think The Banshees of Inisherin one was split. I do think Barry Keoghan's better than Brendan Gleeson. I think he has more to do.
Yeah.
I don't mind this win at all either. I think it's great.
This is a great win. That Mark Rylance performance, I don't understand Mark Rylance. I don't get it. I feel like every time I've seen him, and to be fair, I have not seen his award-winning performance in Bridge of Spies, which apparently he's very good in. But
oh yes, yeah, that movie's kind of boring except for him.
Yeah, but like everything else I've ever seen him in, he is not my cup of tea.
He was. You remember when he was Steven Spielberg's muse for like 3 movies in a row?
Yeah, that all collapsed in Ready Player One, where he played essentially Garth from Wayne's World.
Well, he was. It was like Garth combined with Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Then Simon Pegg played like the Steve Wozniak / other Garth. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Best actress, Cate Blanchett for Tar. She was up against Viola Davis for The Woman King, Danielle Deadwyler for Till, Emma Thompson, Good Luck to You, Leo Grant, and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I feel like this is a bit of a surprise for this group.
A little bit. I actually really do like the nominees here in terms of I think it's a better group of nominees than what we got for like the Oscars, for example. Like I really like that Daniel Deadweiler was in here, who might be my number one out of this category actually.
I can't remember the woman whose nomination is controversial.
Ana de Armas.
No. Well, besides her, the other one. The one that they had the investigation on.
Andrea Riseborough, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Neither of those made it in. I would have gone with Michelle Yeoh, but that was my pick.
Yeah.
Anyway, Best Actor went to Colin Farrell, who was up against Austin Butler for Elvis, Tom Cruise for Top Gun Maverick, Brendan Fraser for The Whale, and Jeremy Pope for The Inspection. The Inspection's movie I didn't actually see, so I don't have an opinion on that. I guess this is the one that I think is going to have the potential to be the biggest spoiler, because this has been kind of Brendan Fraser's to walk away with for a lot of people. I didn't follow the BAFTAs or anything, so I don't know.
It was Austin Butler at the BAFTAs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I like Colin Farrell in this quite a bit. I feel like I like this win. I feel like Brendan Fraser that's the only good thing about The Whale is Brendan Fraser.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I am all for breaking the trend of like acknowledging good performances in bad movies. I really can't do another like Eddie Redmayne in The Theory of Everything and another, Rami Malek and Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, we just can't keep doing this.
I didn't hate The Theory of Everything, but who did he beat that year?
Michael Keaton.
That's right.
For Birdman, which is a fucking disgrace that happened.
Yeah. I get
Keaton
it.
Just gives the best performance of his career, and it's like, yeah.
Was that also the Jupiter Ascending year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Look at that. Moving on. Best Director went to the Daniels, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Up against Baz Luhrmann for Elvis, Martin McDonough for Banshees of Inisherin, the Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, and Sarah Polley for Women Talking. Again, I'm a little surprised that Spielberg didn't get this one. Like you said, I feel like the split might be in for the Oscars. But I do love this win.
Yeah, me too. It's a great one for sure.
And then Best Picture went to Everything Everywhere All at Once, up against Elvis, The Fabelmans, Banshees of Inisherin, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, RRR, Tar, Till, Top Gun Maverick, and Women Talking. Again, I love this win too. I think as my top 10 is shook out, I had Everything Everywhere All at Once third behind Banshees of Inisherin. I think they're kind of bubbling up together now for me. I'm a little surprised at some of the nominees getting in there, like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I mean, I think that's just by virtue of having 10 nominees.
Right.
But I assume you're fine with this win since it was your favorite movie last year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here, as long as it was either like Everything Everywhere, Fabelmans, or maybe like Top Gun Maverick, I was fine with whatever came out of it.
You weren't going to be okay with RRR?
I was not. I am not on Team RRR. I think that movie was fine.
Yeah. Speaking of RRR, it did win Best Foreign Language Feature, which was up against All Quiet on the Western Front, Argentina 1985, Close, and Decision to Leave. RRR also won Best Original Song, which was up against Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Till, and Top Gun Maverick. Again, one of those categories that like I don't really give a shit about because the songs are like played over the end credits. Yeah. I have a really hard time caring about a song in a movie unless it figures into the movie.
For sure. Yeah, and and there were a couple of there's a couple of awards too to go over for like some of the things that our organization does a little bit differently too, which is kind of cool.
Right. You want to pick that up, or you want me to go ahead?
Oh yeah. So I was just gonna say the big kind of highlight here is the TIFA award that we give out to movies that were made in Texas. And in this one, I don't have any in front of me, but I believe it was Apollo 10 and a half.
It was, yes.
Space Age Childhood, the Richard Linklater movie, which I thought was okay. It's not my favorite Linklater, and I've been watching a lot of Linklater lately. And then also, Best Stunt Coordination Team was a new one that we introduced a few years ago. And I believe that was also RRR, wasn't it?
It was RRR. It was up against the Batman, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Top Gun Maverick, and The Woman King. Yeah, I mean, probably the only real serious competition that one had was, I mean, from a pure stunt level, The Woman King, and I guess you could count Top Gun Maverick as stunts, but
yeah.
And then Best Ensemble Cast, just to finish this out, Best Ensemble Cast, went to Women Talking. There's too many people to list here. Visual effects went to Avatar. An original score went to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And Best Documentary went to Goodnight Oppie. Best Animated Feature, Pinocchio. Cinematography went to Top Gun Maverick. So yeah, it's always fun to take part in this. It's fun. One of the interesting things is to, like, you know, I don't know everybody well in the organization, but there are some very, you know, some people that I can see where the nominations bubble up from. Like, I don't want to say that there's groupthink, but there's, you know, in the discussions, there's people that, like, kind of like these tides form for these certain films. I feel like RRR was one of those things. Not to, you know, besmirch its merits or anything, but
yeah.
It is interesting. It's fun to be a part of it. I wish I could have gone to the awards show, but it's a long drive.
Yeah, we'll be back someday. The times I've went have been really good, and meeting everyone is always a nice thing to do, and hang out with those people that we rarely ever see, but communicate with on a semi-regular basis with group meetings and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's just a really cool thing to be a part of every year. Yeah, and
be sure to check out HoustonFilmCritics.com for all this information. Follow us on Twitter at Houston Critics. So, anything else before we move on, Cody?
No, let's do it. We got a Marvel movie to cover.
Let's do it. Let's go ahead and move on to reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
This week we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
You're an interesting man. Scott Lang.
I don't know who you are, but you've made a big mistake, okay? I'm an Avenger. I've called the other Avengers.
You're an Avenger. Have I killed you before?
What?
They all blur together after a while. You're not the one with the hammer.
That's Thor. We get confused a lot. Similar body types. Who are you?
Just a man who's lost a lot of time, like you. But we can help each other with that.
This is movie number 31, I believe, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The first film in what is called Phase 5. Phase 4 kind of came and went with nothing really happening.
Yeah.
Phase 4 was after the Avengers Endgame.
It was the introduction of the television shows, I guess, was the most significant thing about it, right?
Yes. And I guess the multiverse really coming into being a narrative concept. This is, at that point, the third Ant-Man movie. There's a lot to say about this movie, so let's go ahead and get started. Cody, tell us about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and what you thought of it.
Sure. So, you know, as you said, this is the start of Phase 5, and Phase 4 was not great for me. You know, I did not really love a lot of the movies that came during it. I think it was kind of starting to really introduce some fringe characters that had like some difficulty getting off the ground. In like, we talk a lot. I mean, we had, I don't know if it's still active, a Marvel podcast, and it's been interesting going back and watching those movies, and I'll go and watch some old stuff every so often on Disney Plus since it's all right there in really good quality. And it's kind of interesting to think about the idea that Marvel movies in general have been very well received by critics, and then prior to this weekend, there had only been one movie that had ever been rotten from Rotten Tomatoes in the history of all 30 whatever movies. And as it stands right now, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is tied for the lowest percentage with Eternals. They're both at 47% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, of course, everyone is like, don't listen to the critics on this one, but I guess listen to them on all the so,
I mean, this is the constant thing with this shit. Like, it's the constant comic book movie battle. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'll go into that more.
Yeah, you'll cover that. But yeah, so what we get is a movie where Ant-Man's daughter ends up creating this kind of technology that allows communication with the quantum realm, and they all get kind of stuck in that quantum realm. And when they're down there, they meet Kang the Conqueror, who you see in that clip, played by Jonathan Majors, who's going to be like the big bad of the upcoming phase, where he's going to be in multiple movies. He's been seen in the Loki TV show, and essentially that's kind of it. They try to get out of the quantum realm for a couple hours, and Kang, we get a little bit of background on him, and it's just about trying to escape, right? And so, on a narrative front, there's really not a whole lot going on here. And once you kind of cut through a lot of the introduction stuff, it becomes very apparent that this is a movie that exists almost solely to introduce Kang the Conqueror as your villain for the next phase. Because if you, like, none of this has to happen in an Ant-Man movie. Like the idea that he's in the quantum realm, like, this could have been its own series. This could have been, a mini series. This could have happened, and you could only see the stuff that happens between Kang and Michelle Pfeiffer in a flashback, and Paul Rudd doesn't even have to be there. And so, again, the whole thing takes place in the quantum realm. So it has this weird kind of like feels disconnected from everything. It's all CGI, which I think works to varying degrees. Everything's kind of like oddly glowing and stuff, and purple, and I don't know. But it just kind of gets down to what I think has been Marvel's biggest problem for a while now, which is a lot of these movies can't and don't exist as standalone things. They are a means of building towards the next thing. And I think this is maybe like the worst case of all of them, where, again, you have this movie where anytime that it's not background on Kang, it's like a very simple, like, rescue mission movie. Nothing happening is really of consequence. As an Ant-Man story, all he's doing is like trying to find his daughter and get her out. Like, that's literally all that happens. And so for this to exist as like an Ant-Man movie and an Ant-Man story, it's just not satisfying at all. There's no real narrative. I feel like it tries to hit some comedic tonal stuff where it does try to lean on that sort of almost Guardians of the Galaxy type humor, especially when we see there's some characters that sort of feel like they're pulled from that universe and from that kind of like comedic background, where you get like a amorphous blob alien guy. You get like even the one that was William Jackson Harper's character, who like can read minds and stuff or whatever, feels like totally Guardians of the Galaxy ripping off. And then of course you get MODOK in the movie, which is a character. I guess we won't spoil what is actually going on there, but it's a thing that looks intentionally shitty, but even though it's intentionally and by design, it looks extra terrible.
I'm gonna say that it looks shitty on its own. Like it doesn't look shitty. Like it looks shitty. Like it's not rendered right. Like it. I mean, the effect is, if you know MODOK, there has been a TV series, an animated series starring Patton Oswalt. It's unrelated to this. But the idea is he's a big giant head with little tiny limbs, and the effect that they throw in there like looks like an iPhone filter on the actor that's playing MODOK, and I don't think that that's intentional for it to look that terrible. Personally.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, and then when you get to the supporting cast, like Michael Douglas is sleepwalking through this movie. You know, there's almost no Wasp at all in the movie. I mean, I think there's like a hand. Like I wonder how many like actual lines of dialogue.
Evangeline Lilly.
Movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's barely in this. Yeah, I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer has a much bigger part than Evangeline Lilly.
And that actually is, again, like I said, it's the most interesting part of the movie, where you see how Michelle Pfeiffer is connected with Kang and her relationship with the quantum realm. But again, like it's like a 10-minute detour in the movie, and then you're cut back to this story where, again, like it's just not really of consequence, you know. And the thing about it is that if Kang is such an important character here, and he clearly is, as they're building towards him, like the one thing that Marvel hasn't done yet is they haven't really given a villain story long enough to breathe, because they're either jamming an entire arc into a single movie and they never have enough time or give enough time for it, or you have like Thanos, where you get like pieces of it in like a scene or two and like spread out amongst 4 movies, and that doesn't have time to breathe either. Like if you really want, like I don't understand why this couldn't have been like a Kang TV show or Kang origin story and just include the Michelle Pfeiffer stuff in it, and just don't even fuck with Ant-Man. It's just not a good enough story on its own to carry all of this.
Well, that the Kang stuff feels like a giant retcon. It's like, and maybe I'm, you know, I don't obviously don't have any idea that this is true, but it feels like these two things, like it was 2 wheels that spin. It's like, here's this is spinning, like, okay, it landed on, we need to introduce Kang, and this one landed on, what movie's next? And it's Ant-Man. So like they have to shoehorn this Kang story into Ant-Man. I have to figure out why, and it just doesn't fucking make any sense. Yeah, like it's because you have this quantum realm stuff. And sorry, I'm not cutting you off. Are you done or?
Well, it's interestingly, to your point, like the end credits scene seems to indicate that you could have actually made this movie in with any superhero, with any character, and put it in at any time too.
Right.
So to your point, yeah, it does feel like it's shoehorned, because especially when at the end you're introducing this kind of like concept here that shows like, oh yeah, this could have been literally anywhere. And that's the thing that's again frustrating, which is that yes, they have an Ant-Man movie coming up. Yes, they have an opportunity to put Kang and introduce Kang, but this Ant-Man movie in and of itself, like it just doesn't work for me, and it loses. You know, I have not been a fan of the first 2 Ant-Man movies, and I think that the only time that they've gotten the character right has been in the Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, especially Endgame, where they just let Paul Rudd be Paul Rudd. Like they let him like crack wise, they let him, you know, just, you know, talk shit, they let him be funny, they let him be charismatic. And here he's just a guy trying to rescue his daughter. And again, he's split up for a lot of it. There's a period of time when they're focusing on Michelle Pfeiffer stuff where Paul Rudd isn't on screen for like 15 minutes of screen time. And it just feels like a waste of time. It just, you know, this is one of the few where Marvel movies where I'm like, this is a waste of time, completely.
So yeah, I mean, I agree on everything, and this movie, it just makes me mad from a storytelling standpoint, like in and of itself too. Like, forget the fact that Kang is shoehorned in. Forget the fact that we've already met him and been introduced to him in Loki. Like you said, this could have been any superhero movie that has Kang in it. And here we are with Ant-Man, who's, by the way, the entire gimmick of Ant-Man is like that he shrinks small. You throw him in the quantum realm with like no basis for like scale or anything. Like, it just doesn't fucking make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, that's some of the movie harkens back to like one of the best jokes from the first film was the Thomas the Tank Engine like fight. And you're like, oh yeah, that was cool because that actually was funny because it made something, kind of innocuous terrifying because it was large. And now you've got just these blobs and goo and whatever the fuck is happening in the quantum realm. Like, oh, Ant-Man got big. Cool, I guess. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense. But the worst thing about this movie to me is it's edited like shit. It's edited like it's trying to be saved. There's people standing around waiting while another scene finishes. And then the Michelle Pfeiffer Kang stuff is some of the worst characters not telling other characters information to drag out the reveal that I've seen in probably since something like Cowboys and Aliens. Just garbage bullshit. Like just fucking that or Tomorrowland, just wheel spinning horse shit.
Yeah.
And this movie's 2 hours long. And by the hour mark, I already didn't like it, but by the hour mark, I'm like, where are we going with this fucking thing?
Yeah.
I think Jonathan Majors is really good. I think though that the Kang character is wildly inconsistent. In that clip that we showed, and in most of the film, he's treated as this like omnipotent god. And then later in the film, he's getting into fist fights with Paul Rudd. Like, I don't understand what's happening in this film. I mean, it's just, it is truly a complete waste of time.
It also is interesting too that you're introducing a character who is going to be like the big bad. You have a movie called Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. Like, this guy's clearly going to factor in, and so like, but you also know that this is the first movie in the phase, and it's an Ant-Man movie starring an Avenger, a hero here. So like, how do you think that it's gonna end? And then suddenly, like we're gonna see that as like Kang's this like super unstoppable force who, spoiler alert, gets beat by Ant-Man. Like, I mean, like what?
Right.
Like, what are we doing here? Like, at least with Thanos, he was this sort of like, he did have that omnipotent, like, menacing presence. And then when you meet him in Infinity War, he's like a badass at that point. And well established, it's like you're super fearful of him. And of course, this is the first time that we're really getting to see him, but also it just feels weird to like have him interact so closely with a character when you know that his stuff is going to come up later as sort of like the biggest villain that we've seen so far, because he's got to eclipse Thanos, or else what's the point? Right.
Well, the idea was with Thanos, and I think you mentioned it, like he hovered in the background until Infinity War.
Right.
And I think was it Age of Ultron, which is the one where he finally like says like, I'm going to just do it myself, like that end credits stinger.
I think it is Age of Ultron.
And that's when you're finally like, oh shit, here we go.
Yeah. And then Guardians was the first time we spent any significant time with him, I believe.
There's no Thanos in Guardians.
Then what am I thinking of? The one where they fully give him like a little bit of background story.
Oh shit. I don't know. I thought Loki was there. Maybe it is Guardians. I don't remember now that I'm thinking about it.
I thought it was.
Maybe it was Guardians 2, because I thought Guardians 1 was totally disconnected from everything. I don't know. We'd have to research this, but
yeah.
I get what you're saying though. Like there is a point where he does sort of start to drift in, but like this movie is Kang is one of the main characters of this movie, and like you said, spoiler alert, he loses to Ant-Man and presumably dies. But if you know the Kang story, and the movie kind of spells it out, there's just an infinite number of Kangs.
So Thanos was in Guardians. That's the one where they spent some time with him.
Okay, yeah. What's the Lee Pace character's name? That's
Ronan
right.
the Accuser. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, but yeah, this is one of those things that is just like we run across these turds in the Marvel MCU like every now and then. Like Phase 4 was not great, I think, for a lot of people. there's people that have stupid reasons for like because it focused on women characters a lot. Like that's just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
There's plenty of bad movies that don't have anything to do with it, and I think there's dull stuff in there like Black Widow was inconsequential, and Eternals is the other worst movie on the list, Rotten Tomatoes wise. You have something really disappointing like Thor: Love and Thunder, which was a real tonal mess.
Yeah.
Even something like for me personally, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever felt like a lost movie, like it was searching for something, and that was understandably so. This is one that's just like this is just a bad movie. But you've got these people that, and we've talked about this before. The don't trust critics people that are so afraid these movies are going to go away if you stop praising them. That they'll accept this slop, and it doesn't do anything positive for the things going forward. At least as much as DC and Warner Brothers can be derided, and as much as their rabid fan base is in existence for the Snyderverse and other stuff, at least they have the good sense to see when shit doesn't work and to try something new. They haven't really hit on anything good yet. But at least there's that. Like we're gonna get more movies like this because we got them in phases 2 and 3 and whatever. We had Thor: The Dark World, we had Iron Man 2, we had things that were just space fillers. We had Guardians of the Galaxy 2 that were just spinning their wheels. There's gonna be more garbage like this.
Yeah.
And I don't, from a press conference or something with Kevin Feige this past week, the idea was to slow down on the output of this Marvel stuff. But like how many Marvel things have been released in the last year and a half?
Well,
I mean, there's like 6 TV series.
Well, there were 8 TV shows in Phase 4.
Okay, so there was WandaVision. Shit, I don't remember. Captain America, Falcon and Winter Soldier,
Loki, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, What If,
Moon Knight,
and
then I feel like there was one more.
Hawkeye.
Oh, Hawkeye. Yeah, and I haven't finished all of them yet.
Dude, I haven't. The only ones I've seen are WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Those are the only ones I've seen incomplete because I was like, this is too much shit going on. It's the market is being flooded right now with this stuff, and also like as good as WandaVision started, it really kind of whimpered out. And Falcon and Winter Soldier again, kind of the same thing where it was fine. And I'm like, I'm not really. I didn't even finish Loki, which I've heard is probably the best of them. But
yeah, Loki's at least the most interesting. Like stuff like Moon Knight looked really cool, but I don't know what it has to do with anything else. I enjoyed Hawkeye. It feels a little disjointed because it crams a couple of characters in there that don't necessarily belong in there. I haven't finished Ms. Marvel. I haven't even started She-Hulk.
Yeah, and then there's again in Phase 5. There's another 7 shows coming out. There's Secret Invasion, Loki Season 2, What If Season 2, Ironheart, Echo, Agatha: Coven of Chaos, and Daredevil: Born Again.
Oh, that Daredevil is going to be like 20 episodes long too.
Yeah.
I mean, look. There is a glut of this stuff, and it's not all going to be good. And Marvel's kind of coasted by on delivering competent product for the most part. But man, the cracks are really like this is a big crack to me. Like Thor: Love and Thunder was like, okay, maybe they fucked up in giving Taika Waititi like doubling down on that silliness. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever again, I was not a fan of. I get why that one was an odd, was the odd movie out. This one is just like, well, shit, maybe they don't have anything working right now.
Well, and I think it has to be a direct result of like just kind of like striking gold with that first round of Avengers and Robert Downey Jr. and characters that people knew like Hulk and Spider-Man later, but Hulk and Captain America and Thor, and now you're getting into like. The lesser known things. Like if you look at Phase 5, next is Guardians 3, which Guardians 2 was not good, and it's coming off of that. Then you have the Marvels, which I have like no interest in. Captain American New World Order, which again, you're losing the guys who made those Captain American movies so good, and who knows, replacing that in a new series with no Chris Evans. And then you have Thunderbolts and Blade. Like, yeesh, man, I don't know. We may be like, hitting a wall here.
Well, and at what point is it like again, a third Ant-Man movie came up. Like, again, the wheel spun and like, oh, it's time to do Ant-Man 3. Well, what are we going to do with it? Like, you're going to throw Kang the Conqueror in there as the main bad guy, and it's going to introduce everything. I don't get it. I don't understand why. Like, that feels not organic at all. Like, this movie is such a departure from the first two. And I'm not a big fan of the first Ant-Man movie. I thought the second one improved upon the first one. This one is completely different. Like, first of all, there's no fucking Michael Pena, which I think everybody, like, the comic relief is gone. Mm-hmm. Like, I love Paul Rudd. I love him to death, but like he gets nothing to do in this movie. He has funny stuff at the beginning, and I think there's a funny like voiceover at the end. In the middle, it's just nothing.
Yeah.
Again, Michael Douglas is sleepwalking through this. You've got a Bill Murray cameo that like would have been exciting. It really is like a sub Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like they took Guardians of the Galaxy and threw it into this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't feel like anything organic. It feels like leftover pieces from the shelf thrown together to make this movie. Just to satisfy the introduction of Kang.
Yeah, and again, like even the Bill Murray cameo is like one scene, and it's like, how long are we going to continue to coast off of? Haha, it's Bill Murray. Like, I mean, like,
right?
How much is this going to keep happening? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting cynical about this stuff, but this was so haphazardly thrown together that it just does not feel like a complete thing. And again, I can't stress enough too, 95% in the quantum realm, and so it's exhausting to look at too. Like, it's all CGI,
and it doesn't
nonsense.
Look good.
No, it really doesn't.
Like, it's really like, it really, like, you compare this to something like Avatar: The Way of Water, which is clearly a high watermark for, I mean, Avatar: The Way of Water, I get it, it's essentially an animated movie. Mm-hmm. And you sent me the clip. There's like this special effects breakdown going around. I mean, it is fucking incredible what they've pulled off and the way they put this together. You look at this and it just looks like shit. Mm-hmm. And not to mention the editing and the storytelling delays that are in there. I mean, it's just not a pleasant experience at the movies. And it doesn't. I don't think it means the death of this Marvel stuff, but it may be time to look at some sort of countdown. Mm-hmm. I don't know, or at least some sort of tapering off, because like you said, 8 TV shows or whatever in the last 2 years, 4 movies a year sometimes. I mean, it's a lot, and it's not necessarily. I mean, I again, may say this, Man made $100 million at the box office, but storytelling wise, it's starting to get exhausting to the point of not necessarily being satisfying. Yeah. Anyway, what's your grade for? Or do you have anything else to add? Sorry,
Well, I was just going to say, and this is not an original thought. I read this somewhere, but I think it's appropriate, which is that it's getting to a point where it's starting to feel like homework, and And because there's so much like pre-existing knowledge that needs to happen, like you cannot jump into this movie having not seen everything else. I mean, why would you? But like you even if you wanted to, you couldn't and not be completely lost. I mean, it's starting to require the knowledge of everything that's built up before it, and at some point they're just going to have to clean break this and not make it all fit together, because now you're having to be like, how many more of these fucking movies do I have to watch, because that they're all going to be connected, and so that the idea that you're going to get an original story that's completely standalone, the chances of that shrink when you start to connect everything.
Well, and I think that the one of the biggest sins of these films has been the post-credits sequences that aren't necessarily like they went from being little stingers, like little Easter eggs, to actual plot points.
Yeah.
And oftentimes somewhat more important than the most of the movie that just came before it.
Yep.
Which I feel like that's the case for this one. Plus there's like the scene at the very end, to spoil, it's fucking out there. Like you have to have seen Loki to even understand what the hell's going on.
Right.
For one of them. It's just, there's just so much. I don't mind the interconnectedness. I think it's fun that these things connect, but that it's required viewing is a little difficult. Because even comic books would be like, and I don't know how much of experience you've had with it. Like when they'll reference something that happened before, like they'll like put like a little citation, like this happened in Amazing Spider-Man 698.
Yeah. You can't dip out and then come back in with these movies. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, what's your grade for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Cody?
This thing is a big fat C. I can't go any higher than C. And honestly, that might be a little bit generous, but I'm going to give it a C.
You are so in the tank for Marvel, it's not even funny. No, this is a C too. C for me is it's not a good movie. It's a chore to get through. It's barely entertaining. It's a way to pass 2 hours. And again, like, let me say, I grew up with this stuff. Like I was in the trenches when stuff was just in comic book shops, and you were a dork. Like, and everybody that's afraid that it's going to go back to that because people don't like Marvel movies, like, fuck you. Like, there can be bad movies. It's such a strange phenomenon too. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that anymore because we talk about it a lot. But that's it for reviews. Cody, you've got a Blu-ray to talk about, or a 4K ultra high definition Blu-ray, Cody.
I
the
do.
Fablemans. We mentioned the Fablemans a couple of times.
Yeah, so I was sent a review copy here of the Fablemans in beautiful 4K. And had a chance to check out the disc, and yeah, I mean, I've been talking about this movie with people a lot lately, as people ask me for my opinions on the Oscars and stuff, and so or top 10 stuff, and so the Fablemans has been something that's been on my mind a lot recently, and I popped in the disc and was able to kind of watch a bit of the movie, and one of the things that I think is is really appreciated when you can watch in like such high quality on a big TV is that sort of like the idea that this is a very small scope Spielberg movie at the end of the day, but like just the way it's shot is so fantastic. And if you're a fan of Spielberg, you know that his blocking is like some of the most incredible, like his shot composition stuff is like some of the best things that he knows how to do, and so being able to see that at home on a really nice TV was pretty cool, and helps with bridging the gap between theatrical and home. I was able to watch the features, which it's kind of light on features. It's got it's got a trio of short documentaries that ultimately are like maybe 45 minutes in total, but it actually gets into like each component of the movie. And I actually really enjoy listening to Steven Spielberg talk about his stuff, his movies and his work. Like there was did you ever see that HBO documentary Spielberg from a few years ago?
No, I haven't watched it. I know what you're talking about.
It's really good. And this is kind of allows him to talk a little bit about the casting, about the the personal elements of the story. My favorite parts were there was a section where it showed they did some ILM stuff. So do you remember the tornado scene in the movie where Michelle Williams takes the kids and there's like a tornado and then there's like an explosion.
Like chase the tornado,
yeah. So that's all ILM lighting with like a car on a soundstage with like the Mandalorian style.
The volume.
Yeah.
Or whatever they call it. They call it I think they call it the volume, or maybe they call it something else.
Yeah, I don't remember the technical term for it at the moment, so they go behind the scenes on that, and it's like Spielberg using that for the first time, and then you get a little bit of stuff. My other favorite thing was like seeing that a lot of like the actual like I guess 8mm footage or whatever that they're using that Sammy is shooting throughout the movie. Like Spielberg shot a lot of that stuff himself, like the like shooting the Western thing. Like Spielberg kind of himself was holding the camera during that recreation, which is pretty cool to see him kind of talk about that and talk about like he struggled to kind of not make it look too good because he said he's learned so much about filmmaking over the years that he found more interesting places to put the camera or whatever, but he was trying to recreate his old stuff as much as possible. And so you just really get a sense of like how much of this stuff was truly autobiographical as he was talking about it. So I would definitely recommend picking it up it looks amazing in 4K. The cinematography is so good. And if you were a fan of the movie, I think you'll really enjoy the documentaries, especially if you like listening to Spielberg talk about his own stuff.
So I am curious. It's called Stagecraft, by the way, is the brand name for this thing. This was the first time he used it?
I believe so.
I guess so. That would make sense. I guess there wasn't really a thing they called for it. That's interesting enough for me to see, like, a veteran filmmaker like that use something. I mean, that effect is amazing to me.
Yeah. Well, I think the only other
used
thing
correctly,
he could have used it on would be West Side Story. Because
it's not that new. Yeah, because I mean, like I'm looking up the website for this, and like one of the most kind of it's ILM Stagecraft. One of the kind of more mundane things is the like the city scenes, like the when they're standing on the skyscraper in the Batman. That's kind of the most mundane thing that's actually used the volume. But then there's volume work, or the Stagecraft in the Midnight Sky with George Clooney used that same effect. So I'm kind of fascinated that this movie that isn't special effects heavy used something like that. I guess when you're Spielberg you can, but
yeah, and maybe it wasn't the first time, but they framed it that way because they talked about like what's his name, whatever Kaminsky is, cinematographer, talked about like he's like it's a great practical tool, but I prefer being like outside and like being
Giannis Kaminsky. Well, yeah, I mean,
which he was like one of the
guy's like 70 years old.
Like
70-year-old cinematographer.
But it was cool seeing him in that element, talking about the casting, talking about the editing and like you get a little bit of like how Judd Hirsch became involved and like them talking about. It's funny to hear the people in the like who made the movie talk about like how great that scene is like as a standalone thing. It's just kind of I don't know, I just found it fascinating to hear it be talked about in that way. So yeah, I would definitely pick it up if you have the chance, and it's a good one for the collection.
So this one it just hit disc. It didn't it go to digital streaming fairly quickly after release? I don't remember.
I think it was like 21 or 28 days, something like that. It was there pretty quickly. It's
crazy how this stuff is. I have no idea. Like I would never have thought that you could stream it before you could buy it.
Yeah,
the world's crazy, man.
And like it's a bummer that this movie didn't pick up steam because it's not only is it Spielberg's best movie in like 20 years, but man, it just really did not make any money at all. I mean, it didn't even make its budget back.
Well, we talked about the idea that these things have kind of like these mid-budget things have just gone away completely.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nice that it exists in a form where you can buy it, but like, did anybody make money off of it? I mean, I assume no one studio-wise. So
yeah, but apparently, when it came out on VOD, it did pretty well. So good for it.
Yeah,
good for Spielberg, that up-and-comer.
That kid finally caught a break.
Yeah.
He created the blockbuster industry and then was a victim of it.
Yeah, and then nobody wants to see his movie about being a teenager with his parents divorcing.
I mean, it is the... by the way, that reminds me, did you see the Film Discourse Twitter going around the other day where somebody thought that the shadow that Paul Dano was casting in one scene was supposed to be... I can't remember her name. Mitzi. I can't remember the actress's name. Michelle Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? I don't even know what this person's talking about.
It was like the shape of her hair and in his head.
But it was his shadow.
Right.
Like they were wrong, right? Like I'm not crazy.
I haven't
watched the movie since
that's
it was released.
it's a very deliberate and strange shot. That shot, because it's like from the neck up, and it's like the upper part of the wall, almost at the ceiling. It's the composition is such that I think the shadow is supposed to represent something. So I don't know, maybe.
Okay, well, I haven't seen the movie since it was released, and
It looks more like it looks more like Tom Servo actually when you look at the reflection or the shadow shape.
All right, that's gonna do it for this week. Next week, Cody, a couple of things. Creed 3.
Well, that's actually not out for a while. That's out
really?
First
Son
week
of
of
a
March. Yeah.
Oh, well, I watched Creed 2 already because neither of us had seen it, so you and I caught up with Creed 2.
Yeah, well, in my screen, I'm about to go to my screening of Creed 3, but that's out on March 3rd.
Well, shit.
But what we do have is Cocaine Bear.
That's it.
This week.
That's it. Yes. The one of the last film roles for Ray Liotta, by the way. I don't know if it's the last. Is there anything else? Is that it? Cocaine Bear.
Just basically that. There's a movie called Jesus Revolution, but I think I might skip that one.
I don't take his name in vain, Cody. So
I mean, I'm reading the movie title, so it's okay.
Oh, okay. All right. If you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. You can find us on Twitter @cinesnob, Facebook cinesnobnet, youtube.com/cinesnob. You can.
It's an Irwin Brothers movie.
I don't know who they are.
Oh, you don't know the Irwin Brothers? Or actually, I guess it's not the Irwin Brothers. It's just John Irwin. He made I Still Believe and I Can Only Imagine and
those
October
guys.
Baby.
Yes. Well, yeah. So it is. So it's not it's not something using Jesus' name ironically. It's using,
No. It's from the guy who brought you October Baby.
I didn't see October Baby. I think I saw one of those.
He also did
Whatever
the
the
Kurt
ones you just
Warner
named.
American Underdog movie, which I didn't see, but is apparently heavily leaning that way into the.
I didn't see that either. It was a big. The company I work for is based in St. Louis, so it was a big like St. Louis thing. And I remember somebody at some point dropped off a bunch of little stress footballs at the office for American Underdog.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's this movie about this quarterback who was played for a team that's no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun, St. Louis. Anyway, all right. Anything else before we go, Cody?
No, that's it.
All right. On that note, I am Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.